Hello, welcome to episode 16 of Today at Embr. I am your host, Robb Vallozzi. I am here with the co-CEO of Embr. Here today at Embr, my co-host, Jason Dominique. Jason, how are you doing today?
Fantastic, Rob. Thanks for having me as usual on a weekly basis. It's always a pleasure to chat and
Uh,
give our community some insight into what we do here at Embr.
no, absolutely. It's really been a great journey. We're going to actually have a little surprise for you guys today. Initially, when we decided to do this podcast, we had certain goals that we wanted to hit to be able to communicate to the community. And we really looked at this as really an informative series. And our first season being about taking a project from ideation to launch. And that's really what we've been doing here. And now, especially with quarter one, you guys are seeing with the Embr checkout, what we've done with staking, with our smart contracts that are all proprietary, that we've all built from the ground up. And these things have been delivered into your hands, that we want to be able to switch gears when moving forward. And we've learned a lot, being able to do this for the first time. Jason and I were not podcasters. We're not, entertainers in any fashion. We're entrepreneurs. And I think it's been a great journey, but we wanted to switch things up. We felt it's getting a little long in the tooth. And now that we have the deliverables, we want to take a new approach to what we want to be able to do here. What say you, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, we've always said that this is going to be more than just about Embr. And as soon as we got to a moment where we felt that we could bring more people to the table, we we not necessarily changed the format, but our focus initially was to through our own experience, we wanted to write the blueprint of going from ideation to launch. And luckily it's been a success. It could have been pretty disastrous. Journaling and podcasting on the on the ideation and the not launch, but luckily
Yeah.
we did launch. And yeah, as you're saying, Rob, I think it's a great opportunity for us to hint at this idea that season one of Today at Embr is wrapping up, and that we're cooking some stuff for what could possibly be season two.
Yeah, absolutely. We wanted to, we'll still be Today at Embr. We may change the cadence and how frequent they're delivered. We wanted to be able to up the production budget a bit and come up with some new ideas, bring in guests, being able to encapsulate more than just Embr and the idea of our product launches, but to be able to talk about the industry as a whole, where it's going, bringing on newer projects, also to expanding beyond just the Binance Smart Chain, which we'll be talking about today as well. And we really want to make sure that this is something that brings as many eyes to the project as possible. And, moving forward, what it means for our community to still get those, project updates, quote unquote, but really have a broader appeal than just people being involved in Embr, because with the products, Jason, as you know, and as our community knows, are really targeted to help cross multiple chains. We see ourselves as chain agnostics across different projects and what they see as their goals are.
Yeah. And it's an interesting topic because since we've been doing this show, you and I, Rob, I think it's been very much about Embr. And there's obviously nothing wrong about it. We're happy to share what's happening behind the curtains. But even just yesterday, as a team, we were discussing this idea of evolution of Embr, and this transition that we're sort of approaching, where we're going to need to open up sort of our home to hundreds, if not thousands, of new projects that are going to enter this ecosystem. Um, and how do we go about doing this? And I think that one of the great way of sort of leading is by example, and us, you and I, being the voice of what's happening at Embr. I think this is a great way to lead into season two, being more about inclusivity, and diversity. I mean, we love to speak to each other, Rob, but I think it's lacking a little bit diversity and inclusivity. Yeah, I'm excited about this next chapter for both this show, but most importantly, um, us going into the market and welcoming all these new, super exciting, world changing, crypto projects. So yeah, I'm super stoked. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We're going to be, trying different things. Maybe, like I said, upping the production budget. There's some things we want to work on, but those will be coming in the future when season 2 does launch. It's a perfect time to be able to launch those along with it with those ideas. But for today's episode, because we're looking at this as a season finale, basically, that we do want to talk about in conclusion where we've come from, some things we've learned, and we're going to be kind of working in reverse because when looking at the community, you guys are always welcome to ask us questions for those that watch us live, whether that's on YouTube or whether it's on Twitch or even our Discord, Telegram. We always take live questions from the community, and we want to be able to address those questions. This time, though, because we want to show what we've done in the past, looking at some of the community questions, I think by answering these, and we won't be too direct by calling out exactly, what these, specifically who wrote these questions. I'm going to be paraphrasing a bit. But I think that by going through these questions first and working backwards, that it will really give a full idea of what we've accomplished so far and where we're going moving forward when it comes to Embr. And Jason, one of those questions too, and I hear this a lot, and I think that we did address this going forward, in our previous episodes, and I think it's a good one to start with, is that, people are asking, if crypto lays low, which I don't see this being, a projection of it laying low for the next 2 to 3 years. But there are some people that, we saw in 2017 what happened then and some things that happened previously in the past. But they're asking, if crypto lays lows for the next 2 to 3 years, what would the team be doing? I mean, are we ready for that? I mean, what is the team looking at to still move forward? I mean, the answer to us seems obvious. And for those who've been listening on a consistent basis, the answer seems obvious. But we really want to address this question, and I think this is a good one to start with, Jason, to give people an idea that we're more than just a token.
Yeah, well, where I mean, this is a pretty complex question to unpack, but I think without deep diving into sort of why it's pretty doubtful that sort of the sort of long crypto winter that happened a few years ago is far from being potentially something that can creep up, because back then, and I'm just going to give a few pointers on it. I think that one of the major difference is that people that were invested, or the actual market that was invested in crypto back then, and which is one of the main reason why it completely collapsed. And it's because it was the end consumers. It was the people like you and I, Rob, that were sort of the early adopters that sort of put money into crypto initially. But today, it's totally different. You have institutions with billions of dollars into crypto, and it's just all. If you think about most of the projects that are paving the way right now in crypto, and this is another debate, obviously, for another day, but this is obviously a huge debate, regarding the philosophy behind decentralization of the actual Web3, because, and this is just to answer, this is another subject, but this is just to answer why I feel we're not going into this sort of very slow crypto winter for a potential extended period of time. Is that most of all these projects right now, they're all VC backed pretty much, and we've talked about this before, Rob. And this is not sort of the route that we've went on to, but is that all this sort of Web 2 um, big sort of investors that they're seeing, Web 2 going sort of um, not at the same sort of speed and as Web 3 is, all these investors, they're all, dumping, millions and billions of dollars into this new economy. And it's almost unfathomable to think that um, all the space is totally different. So to answer, like, even though hardly we're not preparing for anything of the such, but hypothetically, if we were to enter a phase,
Some winter like that, yes. Even though we're not
yeah,
projecting that's going to be it, that does not mean that we're still there's things we're always planning for. But let's just say hypothetically that that is the
yeah,
scenario.
I think we're setting ourselves up for success and for less, I would say, less vulnerability, because Ember has always been about utility, has always been about solving real world, in the sense that things that are felt across the board, in terms of pain points. And whenever you're sort of um, have this type of approach to your business, rather than being a very speculative type of asset. I mean, yes, we do have a token, but it's not all that we are. We aim at being sort of the engine for, and the tools needed for a lot of those new projects that will be pioneers of this Web3 sort of era. And there is no shortage of innovation. So in even in a time of let's say it would hypothetically slow down for whatever reason, it's not going to stop people from thinking. It's not going to stop people from being creative. And it's not, I mean, I would argue to the complete opposite. In a phase where things are potentially slowing down, I'd see way more creativity. I'd see more entrepreneurship, rising, because um, they're not seeing this as a failure in itself. They're seeing this as sort of and I mean, it's not going anywhere. So my
Well, I
thoughts are, yeah, yeah,
I think, and I totally agree with you too, is that that the thing about crypto is that the space moves so fast, and the people that are inside of this space, people that are makers and creators, that when there is a lull, should I say, or there's always going to be ups and downs regardless of the market, whatever the Fed does, comes to speculative assets. I think this is short sighted to think that's going to be something that's representative of the entire year or 2 years to come. But in that space, when that happens, it's not like entrepreneurial spirit and innovation just stops. It's not like everyone's just like, okay, we're all just going to put ourselves on hold at this point as until the markets
yeah,
go through. In fact, it inspires people to say, look, this is how the market's changing. This is what's happened before. How can we? And that's really, in all honesty, what sparked, not to use a pun there when it comes to, but that's actually what sparked with Ember to be able to launch these projects. As we saw as the market was down in May and the things that
yeah,
were happening, even though that we saw that there was a lot of interest on the BSC and these other projects, that we saw a space and a lane for us to operate to. And that's really
yeah,
what sparked our innovation.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And I think, uh, you know, being ourselves, investors, you know, prior to launching our own business, we all, dabbed, uh, you know, either a lot or not a lot, but dabbed into these speculative assets. And um, it's we can't be reliant on this type of approach. And one of the main sort of focus very early on into Ember is how can we build a business that is not necessarily, I mean, it undoubtedly will always be, but how can we make sure that um, there's not like part of our business is totally uncorrelated with the actual behavior of the market. And this is why and we keep reiterating that the token is one thing and sort of our business model is another. And that business model is heavily focused on delivering products and services that will generate revenue, whether the market is, is tanking today and is rising tomorrow. It's, there are going to be different teams addressing these two markets, and this is sort of the evolution that I've hinted at earlier in the show, which is, we're entering this phase where we're about to welcome a new set of reality in our business. And the token itself, this community that people they came together and they're supporting us. These products and services essentially will have a direct impact on the token. And we want it to always be connected and always have this synergy where hopefully, I mean, all the actions that we've taken, from having a massive liquidity pool, from having pre-sales with vesting schedules, all these things. I mean, if they're not speaking loud enough about how we're thinking about stability, how we're thinking about security and long term, I mean, I don't know what else could speak as loud
Honestly,
as those things. So yeah,
actions, not more.
yeah,
It's actions more than just words, And I think
exactly.
also too, this is a good way to segue, is that one of the market, has been what it has been. I mean, this is not, breaking news or a hot take or anything about what's happening with the market. We're all seeing what's happening in real time for the past couple of days. We've seen it in the past, but during that time frame, which we've demoed a product and shown, there's actually been a more of a driving factor to innovate even further since we've demoed the product last, which was only last week. With James, who for those who are unfamiliar, who's head of technology here at Embr, we've innovated even further in just that short period of time. Jason, do you want to kind of break that down and some of the things that we've expanded on that are already implemented and what the future of that is, just as a point in case of innovation during a lull
Yeah.
period?
Well, I think one point to what you're bringing is, and we were just speaking, bringing this up, you and I, before going live, is, when we started building Embr Checkout, um, we obviously had an intention of, making it available cross chain and making it, as many projects, being able to use it. And it almost didn't even cross our mind that when we introduced, Embr Checkout, that it would be on 5 different chains. And we were just thinking, well, we're going to bring this to the BSC, and this is going to be the strategy to take it to market. And we're going to be on BSC probably for quite some time because, all these other chain, it will take X amount of time to integrate them. And this just, again, like you're saying, Rob, this is just absolutely insane how fast things are moving. And when we introduced Embr Checkout last week, it already supported 5 different chains, and by the end of that day, we had already integrated Harmony. So by the end of that day, we were at 6. And right now, and I'm going to answer your question because I have a list, and I'm not like literally kidding. There's a list of things. It's not like we're going to be adding one. Um, I mean, James is currently working on adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 new chains. And this will probably be, ready to roll again, trying to stack up as many options for when we launch. But I wouldn't be surprised that these added chain in the next week or two, they're going to be, you know, rock and rolling.
At least the vast
And
majority of them.
yeah, and if you want to, you know, if you want us to name drop any of those, I think every time I'll name one of them, it's probably going to be $500 million to $1 billion, you know, in terms of market. And ultimately, these, you know, these decks and these side chains, they're moving so fast. So by the time we're integrating them today, you know, in a week's time or 3 weeks time or in a month's time, by the time we release it, they might have changed their total lock value to like astronomy, you know, astronomical.
Astronomical heights, yes,
Yeah,
astronomical heights, because
exactly.
it could hit the because pump up.
Plus there'll be more. I mean, you just look at Phantom. You know, Phantom are pretty much like number two right now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
2 and 3, and where was Phantom like before Christmas? They weren't anywhere.
It's like
And
unheard of.
now in Q1 in January, they're just completely exploding.
Do you want to kind of name
Yeah,
drop a couple of those there for the
yeah, yeah,
community? I
yeah,
know they're
yeah.
probably going
I
crazy.
mean, the sad reality is that, to be honest, I hardly know any of them. But one thing that I know is that they're, you know, they're booming, and you know, I've looked into them, and they're exciting. You know what's happening on those chains, and you know, this is something we need to mention. I mean, a lot of people will be like, "Well, we need to get this massive big project, you know, that adopts Ember checkout and everything." But you know,
That was
then
my next
again,
point, was going to talk about is our strategy and why it's so
yeah,
important.
but these chains, this is where innovation is happening. You know,
Mm-hmm.
these are that's bleeding edge. You know, talk about Chronos, Aurora, Moon River, Moonbeam, Metis, Arbitrum, Hecko, Oasis. Oasis is one of those out there that's just going to probably completely obliterate Solana. If you haven't looked at it, you know, pay attention. Ronin, Cello. I mean, like seriously, these ecosystems, they're the breeding ground for crazy innovation. And Ember Checkout will help one of the foundational pain points of any entrepreneurs, which is I want to, you know, I want people to buy my
Right?
asset. I
Yeah,
want people to be
easily.
able to invest in my project. And it's all about conversion, and having Ember Checkout available on all those different side chains and chains is just going to be such like it's going to change everything for most of these entrepreneurs.
And also, too, even speaking to as well here, because I see what someone else was asking too about Amber buyback, which we'll get into and how that affects the token. But I think also something that this is relaying to the question of what are we doing to be sustainable. And it's more than just saying, "Hey, here is the checkout." Andrew's talked about this in the past and be like, "Okay, just everyone start using this." For projects and tokens or assets that are doing extremely well, that have a ton of volume moving on them, that are already some of the top 2, 3, 4 projects, people that already know how to buy those. I mean, obviously, we want to be able to market to them and hopefully bring them along eventually, but we don't see that as a strategy that will be completely successful, in a sense where we want to get as most traction as possible that will eventually make us a household name that will draw in these big names. Something like a sidechain like Ronin, which I believe they only have one DEX on there, that is maybe, if we thought Pancake Swap was difficult to use, this is even master level class. And for some reason, they're able to. I mean, there's still hundreds of millions of dollars in transactions still moving through there. There is
Yeah.
absolutely this is and these other chains, these other projects, like we showed 2 examples yesterday of that we're doing pretty well, that are smaller products in 27 million in one day. These are attainable potential clients that can easily be reached to be able to grow our base, that really in reality have the fewest amount of options, and they're looking to get traction themselves as well, and something to stand out amongst, I wouldn't say competitors, but also something that's very similar as a project. And to be able to have our checkout on their page can help them
Yeah.
separate themselves, especially on a side chain that really is, pretty much niche at this point.
Yeah, I mean, their name is beautiful. You know, you need to be a real ninja, you know, to
Yeah.
to master that dex, you know. So, um, Yeah, and you know, sometimes people will be like, well, I mean, we need to go back to our mission. I mean, yes, there is huge amounts of profits to be made in onboarding one of those massive project, and token that, as you're saying, Rob, I mean, people that are invested in those massive projects, they've figured it out,
Hmm.
so ultimately, yeah, we could add the checkout on their website, but they're not funneling as much new sort of money in as those new sort of product and projects. So for us, I think fundamentally our goal is to help people like us. So this is why we're going to be targeting in terms of strategy. If you want to, address this, Rob, and obviously this is in your backyard, but yeah, it's going to be how can we make sure that checkout is seen by as many of those yet to be launched or just recently launched, and they're experiencing the same pain point that we were.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's odd, as a good, it's a good problem to have. But when it comes to, our sales strategy and kind of putting that together, we used to, me coming from large corporations that are, these ones that are billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar corporations. They're not like a jet ski that can quickly, change direction on how they want to, change course in their marketing strategy or what their products are, how they work. It's like moving a massive, basically a battleship or an aircraft carrier. It takes a lot of moving parts, years to make it move, the chain of command. And something like this, which is we're able, and our company's design this way, is so nimble. Originally, when we were talking about this, as you stated, our primary focus was the BSC. And then immediately now we're on now six chains within a week. And then adding another, it looks like 10, time that we're able to launch, is that this product is evolving so fast that how we market this and who we market it to is changing consistently as well. So it's an odd problem to have, to where the product is growing such a fast pace and making it a larger and wider audience to be able to hit. But at the same time, then those things have to be concrete for us to build up around that of what the strategy will be. Because with every new chain and every new dex, the name of the game has changed. It's not like we have a sales force of 500 people that are able to hit all of these at once. So we have to
Yeah.
be direct with our actions to get the most projects on board the quickest.
Yeah. And you just, raised it, and I've raised it, in the previous shows and episodes, is like, how do you reach such a huge amount of addressable market, and we've been like hard at work, and these are the kind of things that we want to bring to you, because it's all about sharing this opportunity with as many people as possible. But word to mouth incentive that are driven by referral is going to be one of our main strategy, because we can't do it by ourselves. And what we believe, and it's been proven time and time again. You just look at, and without naming, classics in terms of referral marketing, you look at Dropbox, look at these pioneers out there that, the mechanism that they work, and they're perfectly adapted to our space, which is crypto, and also very much align with the type of product that we're bringing to market. So we're working double time in the background to make sure that we can bring, something like a great both one that will be very individual driven about referral marketing, and the other one is going to be an affiliate program, which we feel, something could be very interested for people that want to spread the word, but sort of more on an ongoing basis. And ultimately, yeah, this checkout, maybe we should, and we've talked about multiple times about Embr.org, and maybe the sequence of it may not have rang a bell for a lot of of you folks out there, but Embr Checkout is the foundation in terms of technology, is the foundation of what will enable Embr.org in terms of facilitating the and this is funny because if you look at our mission statement, it states clearly four or five milestones.
Mm-hmm.
They're big milestones, and one of them
Mm-hmm.
is we've reimagined how you discover, how you invest, how you create, and how you communicate in the cryptosphere. And Embr Checkout is all about the invest pillar. And Embr.org is all about wrapping all those things together. The discovery tool. This is most probably going to be the second pillar that we'll be working on once Embr.org is launched, because with the tool where discovery can be converted into investment, because it's all about like what's the next big thing out there. Once you've found it, how do you convert this interest? Well, Embr Checkout is that. This is how
Mm-hmm.
we enable people to go from discovery to investment in a snap. They don't have to go anywhere else. It's not going to be like a 10-step process. It's all going to be there. And then you have obviously create. What is create? Well, create is a simple way of saying like helping or having tools that will enable people to go from ideation to launch. These guys, they're creatives. They are creating. And then last but not least is communicate. Well, communicate, a lot of people out there in the community, they've been saying, well, we want to, rivalize Facebooks of this world. Well, that's not our goal, but we do aim at bringing social into Embr.org, and that's communicate. So when
Mm-hmm.
you think about everything that we've been, uh, sharing with the community about discovery, about investing, about creating, and about communicating, well, this is Embr.org. And our first milestone is investing. And now we're bringing Embr Checkout, this underlying technology, we're bringing it into Embr.org to power discovery and conversion. And this is something that will be arriving much sooner than a lot of you believe, can probably believe. But we're doing the kickoff after our show today. We're doing the kickoff with Superside. So this is the initial steps where we're onboarding this team of world-class creatives to bring this vision to reality. So I couldn't be more excited.
No, it's really exciting too, and I think that's sometimes the point that's missed when it comes to the Embr Checkout. Of course, this is a product that that we want to be able to kind of, I guess, cold call and have outbound sales forces, being able to bring these projects and making sure they have some awareness of it and how they're able to utilize it, and especially too that this is a product that's basically free of charge. It's going to do nothing but increase their conversion rate, because they spend a ton of money in marketing to be able to do this. We talked about this last episode, is that once you spend this money in marketing and even with word of mouth, being able to and SafeMoon had some great success with this, but there was a lot of confusion on, well, how do I actually buy this? So even amount of eyes that you've drawn towards your product or to your project, that there's just a large portion that fell off when that hurdle of being able to actually buy and invest wasn't met with ease. So, but besides that, though, is that this is more than just a product. It's really the underlying technology for Embr.org. And especially now with adding these 10 other chains, that means 15 chains instantly make our site, Embr.org, the availability to buy over 6,000 and growing different cryptocurrencies on 16 different chains at this point. You can't do that anywhere. I mean, there's nowhere to do that. I mean,
you go to, people are talking about Coinbase, but Rob, you as being their number one user, how many coins is there on how many coins is there on Coinbase?
Maybe. I think if maybe on a good day, maybe close to 60 or 70. I could be wrong. I mean, there may be 100 or some ones I haven't seen on there yet. But as the number one place for people to buy cryptocurrency, there's not a lot of cryptocurrencies on there, and they're all only really Ethereum based. Those are the only ones. They're all on that ETH. That's tier 1 or tier 2. They're not really a large diversity there at all. And
Yes,
I mean, go ahead.
No, but what I want to add, and I apologize for cutting you off, is if people are going into crypto, to invest into something that will give them more than 2x and 4x and 5x. I mean, these are all established coins, to be honest. I mean, you're going to navigate, you're going to have, on good days, you're going to have some 5x, and then you're going to drop, by 2x. And then, we're talking about ETH and things like that, but it goes to, unless
like Litecoin, like who's buying Litecoin $130? It was going to go to 400. I mean, that almost seems totally implausible.
Yeah, and even when you look at Solana, yeah, it went from 2 digits to 3 digits and things like that. But ultimately, the real opportunity to invest in and to discover and to interact with emerging and world-changing projects, it's going to be in DeFi. And we know this, and it's all going to be happening, on BSC. It's going to be happening on that Ninja Gaiden Ronin road chain. Side chain. It's going to be happening on all these emerging, crazy, obscure, with still being legit, but and that's another subject, due diligence on who can actually use and adopt and enable these purchases. But yeah, this is where it's happening, and this is where it's going to be happening for a long time. In my opinion, layer 1 is great. But everything that is consumer facing, which is going to be this world of Web3 and DeFi, I think this is truly exciting stuff.
And I think also for us really too, and that's our tagline as a company, and this is your gateway to the decentralized world. And that means more than just Ethereum, Bitcoin, and now the BSC isn't growing in popularity. There's so much more out there. This is really just the tip of the iceberg, and this really will be the gateway for anyone to jump into these projects. And also, too, as a business model, it really gives us, and I talked about this previously about consideration. What that is value to a company is that these other projects that are on these other dexes, this gives us leverage with them. This gives us the ability to have conversations with them as, do we promote one another? Do we become their go-to spot? Do we, and when it comes to legitimacy about these other projects, I just want to bring this topic up very, very swiftly, is when we did our product demo last week, that, of course, there's a lot of these, coin casino type of nonsense that goes on all of these chains, or just and honestly in stocks in general. But there is a ton of legitimate projects. There's no reason for us to be morally ambiguous, when it comes to who we're dealing with, just so we can cash in on what seems to be some nefarious activity. There's more than enough of legitimate projects out there to where we can have a sustainable business model through that revenue stream, focusing just entirely on them.
Absolutely. And I think to that point, by not sort of letting anyone use, this powerful tool, these meme tokens that, not necessarily will have real utility, and that they're purely speculative, if they're not, let's say hypothetically, and we can foresee sort of a very close future in which, let's say, you go to Embr.org, pretty much all the legitimate sort of thousands of projects are there. There's like a legitimacy check, sort of a tick on projects that, let's say, have passed an audit, that they've have a locked liquidity. Ember's founders have doxed themselves, etc. So all these sort of criteria
You're hitting
to
certain
bring,
prerequisites. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And basically, if you're, and I'm just going to say this out like out loud, but let's say hypothetically, if you're not on Embr.org, you're basically left to live on a DEX. And who's going to be using a DEX like to invest in, like that's going to become like sort of the Tor browser of like the crazy wild west of crypto. And it's, do you understand
Approaching
what I
dark
mean?
web. Yeah, almost
Yeah,
approaching
it's like
dark
the
web
dark
territory.
web. Yeah, exactly. And we're going to start seeing this shaping up very, very rapidly. People that will go to DEX to purchase tokens, it's not going to happen anymore. By the end of this year, starting next year, nobody's going to go unless you want to get this really wild token that is not on a legitimate platform that has all these vetting mechanism and trust scores. It's just not going to happen.
No, absolutely. And the good thing is too is that, just because, and this is for maybe speaking a little bit out of turn here too as well, but when it comes to, version 2 and version 3 of what we hope to see with Embr checkout, I mean, we want to be able to do more than just being able for people to purchase, obviously, tokens. We want to be able to use for any digital asset, NFTs. Those are all going to be part of that. Even eventually, real world goods that we're able to use. And even though if a project might not be past our criteria or be able to meet all the prerequisites, with version 2 and version 3 coming forward, is that any of these tokens now will have utility because you'll be able to basically exchange or buy one of these other digital assets that come through Embr with anything that are listed on these dexes. So you'll be able to move from one of these projects that you decided to jump into, whether it was some crazy thing that you thought was going to pump, it was a meme token, but you're looking for a way to do something now with that asset. You can now, it has legitimacy to be able to at least purchase stuff on Embr.org from one of these assets to any of the ones that we think that meet those requirements.
Yeah. And we'll dive more into these next, iterations of Embr checkout. But you're absolutely right, Rob, in terms of, we see, I mean, ultimately the reasons why, if we look at the, the actual reason why you can't, let's say hypothetically, buy a safe moon with Embr directly, it's because there's a native currency that is paired with each of them. And that step is a huge amount of friction for anyone coming in, whether it's on Polygon, where you need to have the Avalanche token, or you're going on sorry, not on Zematic, and all these different chains. They all have their native currency, their native token. And this is, normally speaking, this is the paired one. So you need to have that one to buy any other one. So it's always directional. It's not bi-directional. It's a singular direction. And we think that this step is an obsolete step. It's obviously a necessary step, but the end user does not have to be part of that step. And so dexes and native, tokens and, all these hoops and loops by V2, V3 of Embr checkout, they'll be history. And this is why we're going to make interacting on a dex so obsolete, because when you'll go to Embr.org, it's always going to be one or two steps. You're always going to be one or two steps away of being able to, going from one position to another position in terms of your investments or what you want to invest in.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to give away too much, is that we even have, and not to say too much, even from from one chain to another chain, to be able to make that happen as in 2 clicks as possible. But that's for another conversation in the future. But as you can see, what our general scope is and our ambition is, by just us implementing these many chains this quickly before launch. I mean, at this point, like, not making a joke, this could make us one of the largest go-to places for crypto literally overnight. and how we're able to market that and get that out there. Maybe the other questions people are asking is, what is your plans of gaining new holders and new investors? If we, we've talked before about, Embr Checkout being able to have basically, front facing to every investor on multiple chains saying powered by Embr, that there is a huge, huge, the type of word of mouth marketing there possibly could ever be. So that's a great way to implement that. But also, too, when it comes to how we actually do traditional marketing campaigns, is that we're able now to encapsulate so much more than just one particular chain or one particular product or one particular service, or one particular type of digital asset even. I mean, more than just even tokens. It could be a project or NFTs, or even going even as far as real physical goods, that this is going to draw so much attention to this project and potential investors. I mean, imagine a person who has X amount of, BNB, and we haven't even got into with Wire and our own wallet and, being able to just use a credit card, which that alone is, even next level on top of that. But imagine someone who says, I have $2,000 I want to invest. I found this particular token, or I even have this certain amount of assets, like, did very well this month, and I have quite a bit of profit. I want to move it forward. I find this particular project. I want to go ahead and buy it. Then after buying this one, I realized, what's this Embr thing? Oh, you know what? $1,000 on there. The other two projects, the three projects I've seen this name everywhere at this point. And I think that is a type of word of mouth marketing on top of being able to traditionally market with a broader audience will really draw attention to us when it comes to regardless of the investor.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to compare ourselves with one of the, some of the leading marketplaces out there, because this is what we are. You come and you shop, and basically you find something that you're interested in and you want to purchase it. I mean, ultimately, going back to 15, 20 years ago, there's little known massive bookstore that started online. If obviously you can
Amazon.
You'd be interested in what it has to sell, in terms of products over there. But then again, wouldn't it be wise to also put a few coins, in Amazon?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
There's a reason, why. But anyway, I don't want to shield
Don't
too much Embr
or get too speculative. And I think
yeah.
this all leads back to, I think, our last question for the segment, and really the last question for the series, to kind of wrap this up. And we've, for those who've been listening every week, some of this may seem, redundant to some of the information. We want to make sure it's as clear as possible, and transparency is important. And one of this is, this sounds great. There's going to be massive revenue generated for Embr and for future projects. And when it comes to development and being able to hire some of the best and the brightest to be able to move our vision forward. And one of those things, though, that we want to talk, that people are asking about and how it relates to them as an investor, of course, all these other things will compile together when it comes to, word of mouth and, getting a lot of traction and just brand identity. But when it comes to the real technical aspect of, and you may want to break this down, as we did mention this last time, Jason, is when it comes to buyback and how part of that revenue stream is, will be used for buyback to go back into liquidity, and really what that means for the token and how those percentages will work. I know that we've talked yesterday, and you mentioned, some arbitrary numbers that weren't set in stone, of course. And these numbers will be played with more and more with our economists that we talk to. But how it affects the price of the token, what that means for investors, why they should be happy about that, and what we see the future plans for that moving forward. I know that a lot of this stuff is still tentative. We're working through it. We're testing it. There's some things you kind of want to build upon, though, to build some clarity for the folks that may need some.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we can't emphasize too much on the idea that the token, even though we're not just about the token, it's always and will always remain a high priority for us. We're financially invested in this. All of our team is remunerated or compensated, partly with some token as well. So I mean, just like any business that has equity, a blockchain powered startup its equity is the token. So
Mhm.
for us, it's, the incentive of driving the price upward of this token is as intersected as any people in our community, any person in our community that has a vested interest in Embr, a financial, beyond just being excited about what we are, the emotional investment, this financial investment, we're all in it as much as you are. And when we design products and services, it's in our best interest, as much as for everyone in the community, uh, to design it in such way that it will be, there will be some correlations between what we bring to market and our sort of equity, the business worth, the token itself, the market cap, and all those sorts of things. So, like you're saying, Rob, I can't, unfortunately, not because I don't want to disclose it, is because I don't know the amount. I just don't know how much it's going to be, out of the 100%. But one thing is for sure is we need to be mindful of, um, we need to be mindful of these potential success case scenarios where it becomes extremely successful, and what will it mean? What will it mean for sort of our tokenomics to have um, X amount of buybacks in X amount of time? And then we need to play around with different scenarios. On scenario A, lots of people buy as well, because, we don't want the buyback to overrun the actual buys of, the public.
Mhm.
Um, Eventually, obviously, the buyback will never be bigger than when we start trading like crazy. Um, but from now to then, we just need to make sure that it makes sense, and it doesn't seem like, um, and not that it doesn't seem, we don't want to be manipulating the market neither. We
Mhm.
have to be careful, and these these PR elements, these untangible, that have nothing to do with tech, that have nothing to do with the actual percentage. What's going to be the public opinion of this, and how can we mitigate the impact of the public opinion based on how it performs? And also, what's the engagement towards this buyback? And is it going to be a lifetime engagement? Is it going to be like a set in time sort of? Is it going to be sort of a bigger number now, a lesser number later, because of the growth? I
The
can't
amount of
say.
volume that could be going through. Yeah, exactly. These are
I, and
a lot of there's a
yeah.
lot of things that we have to think about before
Yeah,
actually implementing them.
it's not a clear cut, like, oh, we're gonna buy X amount and that's it. There's no implications and we're just gonna run with it. That's not how we roll. We do things meticulously. We try to think about all the different use cases, and we want to make sure that it's sustainable. So
Well,
we have plenty of time.
we never want to be in a situation where we're a victim of our own success, because that happens a lot of times within organizations, because they may be planning of how do we get there, but sometimes, especially when it comes to something like a buyback and how it can affect tokenomics, and when it comes to how that affects the market, this can
Yeah,
easily, if this takes off, it could be a situation where we could be victim of our own success, and that
yeah,
can
and so,
cause a PR nightmare, and there's all kind of unforeseen untangibles that we really have to think through.
yeah, and for those who, that may come as a surprise, but you know, interestingly, most of the like most of the reason why a startup actually fails is not out of it's not out of starvation, because they don't have enough revenue. It's not, because they don't have enough market. It's purely out of gluttony. It's because they try to ingest too much, because um they're so driven by whatever, and they're ingesting too much. And this buyback is an ingestion, and we need to be careful about, how much we ingest. So it may seem great to buy more in terms of the buyback, but you need to balance. It's a balancing act.
Yeah, absolutely. And like everything that we do here, it needs to be tested, thoroughly retested, talked to with consultants and with our economist to see what the effects could be, of us. As you were saying, a lot of these startups too, is that especially when they start to build a revenue stream and start to see some form of success, that they use other companies as a barometer and think that they're able to just keep ingesting, that they live in a bubble, that they can do no wrong, just keep pushing forward. And then they end up blowing up because at the end of the day, they really, like I said, are victims of their own success. And we don't want to live in that bubble. We don't want to have those sort of short-term aspirations. We want to see this do. And that's why we built these tokenomics that have mirrored some of the best that, when it comes to what their market cap is now and the value of price per token that they have already. So there's no reason to spend all that time, effort, and research into how we built our tokenomics to throw it out the window just because something may seem like the carrot being dangled in front of our face. That could be that, the easy go-to. So we want to make sure that we, have these basically what is R&D in place before we ever implement anything.
Yep, absolutely. So, I mean, if hopefully this answers the buyback question, more on this.
More of this coming up here in the new series. So I think that was a great way to end this. I think that, kind of we started backwards and worked our way forward here when it came to the questions. And I think it really encapsulated what we talked about this entire first season of Today at Embr. Season 2 will give us some new implementation. We're going to be talking about how we're going to do that. This may be bi-weekly. We're not sure. We're going to implement some things to kind of bring at the production level as well. We want to make sure that you guys follow us along on this journey. I think it's been really fantastic. I mean, how far we've come since episode 1, doing this as a podcast. Jason, it's been real fun. Jay, do you want to add anything to the rest of the public here before we get out of here?
No, I mean, I'm ecstatic at the idea that, it's been a successful season 1 in the sense that we've actually, launched, and it's a beautiful blueprint for whoever is out there and, wants to learn about smart contracts. What's the implication of liquidity pools, all these subjects that, there's an education part of it. And then when we did launch, what were the realities of having a launched, blockchain powered startups, and it's all those things. And I think it hopefully it'll serve a lot of people out there, and will just like a Netflix sort of show, they'll just binge listen or watch this first season of Today at Embr and get inspired by these lessons learned and, all those sorts of things. So, I mean, it's out there in the world, and, I'm proud to have done it. And it's just the beginning of this season 2, and it's going to be a new dynamic, and I can't wait. One thing I can add is, it's probably going to be a short break, we're probably going to skip a show just to make sure that we're all organized and that we can start pushing forward, and that we have everything set and done right. But looking forward to getting back in that chair with you, Rob.
No, absolutely, and I couldn't agree with everything you said. And I'm going to do just also a slight victory lap too as well on my part, because I guess it's not couth for the CEO to be doing it, but as someone who's the spokesperson and the sales guy here, I do have to say it's just and to be speaking on behalf of the entire team and everyone who's been involved and people that have been believers in the community. You've really people that put trust in us at this point through this journey with transparency. We really have delivered on, I'd say, all of our promises that we made since we began this podcast, and not just with the products that we promised, but when promised to being more transparent and taking questions from the community and really setting the standard and setting the bar. That any naysayers that may have been around with any project, obviously there's people that have been skeptics. I believe at this point that everyone on the team can really take a bow. And because of the stuff that we've delivered, especially now with the Embr checkout, when it comes to liquidity, and now soon to see with Embr.org, is that I think it's time to move forward And this is a great way to end, I believe, a first season of many. Jay, it's been a real pleasure, buddy. For anyone else listening out there, this is Today at Embr, the end of our first season. See for season 2 coming up, probably not next week, but the week after. But you can always catch us every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where it's on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're available wherever you get your favorite media. I am Robb Vallozzi here at Embr with my co-CEO, Jason. Jason, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, guys. Have a great one.
Peace. Thanks.